After years of residing beneath our HOAs, iron fist, they inevitably crossed the line. By upping my expenditures over having too many automobiles in my own driveway, what they didn't know was that I'd been covertly buying up the neighboring properties for years. And now it was time to show Karen, our power-greedy HOA president, who actually owned this community, but would she accept loss gracefully when I revealed my secret? Welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you want more Karen and HOA tales. I never desired trouble with our HOA, I didn't, but when I discovered that large orange warning pinned to my front door last Tuesday morning, I knew this was battle. My palms were shaking as I read it. Fast hold charge hike $500. Monthly violation, excessive vehicles on property, 3 automobiles. That's what this was. Regarding my employment truck that I need for my building enterprise, my wife's SUV for her hospital duty, and the used Honda we purchased for our daughter's 16th birthday last month. 3 precisely regular automobiles on our own driveway. I watched through my kitchen window as Karen Mitchell, our HOA president, did her morning inspection stroll with her little pink clipboard and measuring ruler. She parked at my driveway, drew out her phone, and began taking shots again. This was the 3rd time this week. Honey, she's out there again, my wife Sarah summoned from the living room. Maybe we should just park the Honda in the storage. No, I responded firmly, pouring my coffee. We're not concealing our daughter's automobile like we're doing something incorrectly. The garage is full of Sarah's medical supplies and my Judy's equipment, precisely like we explained at the last meeting. That meeting, I couldn't quit thinking about how Karen had sneered when I attempted to explain our scenario. Rules are rules, Mr. Thompson, she'd replied, not even glancing up from her phone. Maybe if you can't afford appropriate carport storage, this community isn't for you. What Karen didn't know, what none of them know, was that I'd been silently purchasing up homes in our development for the preceding 5 years through my real estate investment corporation. Every moment a house went up for sale, I made careful to employ distinct LLC identities for the purchases. It started as a clever investing strategy, but abruptly it had become something more. I wandered outdoors, go collect the mail, purposely taking my time. Karen feigned to investigate Mrs. Johnson's rose bushes while observing me from the corner of her eye. Unfortunate Mrs. Johnson had been penalized last month for possessing roses that were too vivid and disturbing. Neighborhood color harmony. My phone received a notification from my lawyer. Property closure complete. You now own 67% of the development. I smiled, tucking the phone aside as Karen Power marched at me, her clipboard clasped to her bosom. Mr. Thompson, she cried out, her voice sickening. Exquisite. I trust you received our notice about the vehicle infraction I committed, Karen, and I have some inquiries concerning the legal basis for this fee increase. I kept my intonation calm and professional. She waved her hand dismissively. The board has full authority to implement fees as appropriate. Perhaps if you attended more seminars, you'd comprehend how these things function. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. Petite did she know I'd attended every single meeting for the previous 5 years through proxy representatives who possessed the past houses I'd set back and documented every one of Karen's selective enforcements, every questionable fee, every abuse of authority. As she turned to leave, her fancy heels tapping on the sidewalk, she exclaimed over her shoulder, "Oh, and the board is convening an emergency meeting tonight, 7:00 p.m. Keen will be discussing supplementary actions around issue qualities." I saw her saunter away, then took out my phone again to text my counsel time to prepare those documents we discussed. Karen's making her relocate tonight. My daughter's car drove into the driveway just then, and I saw Karen pause to take more photographs. My blood heated, but I kept my composure. Tonight would alter everything in this neighborhood, but before I had some messages to make, I strolled inside and stretched out the property schematics on my desk. Per lot, plainly highlighted and classified. 5 years of meticulous planning, of building evidence, of witnessing Karen's reign of HOA terror grow worse. Tonight she would comprehend that her biggest error wasn't merely targeting my family, it was underestimating exactly who she was. Coping with my phone rung. It was Mrs. Johnson from across the street, weeping about another infraction notice. As I listening to her story, I looked at the framed photo on my wall. My father standing pleased in front of his first residence before a HOA's harassment had Forced him to sell at a loss 20 years. Earlier Dad had taught me to play the long game, to fight prudently instead of angry. I gazed at my watch 6 hours until the meet-up. Karen wished to play hardball over a couple automobiles in a driveway. She had no clue what was coming. I walked into the community center's meeting space and immediately detected the tension. Every seat was full with people I'd known for years, seated shoulder to shoulder, whispering among themselves. Karen had genuinely surpassed herself this time. She'd even engaged a professional photographer to capture shots of my driveway from varied angles, composing 3 normal-sized cars appear like some type of illegal parking lot. Let's commence, Karen declared, tapping her dazzling pink gavel on the podium. She dubbed this emergency conference on a Tuesday evening, knowing full well that most working families would strain to attend, but I'd made sure to be there, seated silently in the back row, observing her doing her typical performance. As you can see from some professional photos, she began looking through her PowerPoint presentation. Mr. Thompson's property has become a second-hand vehicle lot. A few murmurs came from her devoted admirers in the front row, the same ones whose Christmas decorations kept up until March without any penalties. I gazed around the room, seeing how Mrs. Rodriguez, my elderly neighbor, rolled her eyes. She'd been punished last month for having her grandson's vehicle in her driveway while he assisted repair her roof. Mr. Chin, the high school science teacher, was fiercely taking notes. He'd received a violation notice for situating his automobile just over his own driveway line during the last blizzard. Karen clicked to the next slide, displaying a zoomed-in photo of my daughter's car. This vehicle here has been parked in the same location for almost 48 hours. She omitted to clarify it was when my daughter was home from college over the weekend. The assembly dragged on as Karen presented her proof charts illustrating purported property value decreases, complaints from anonymous neighbors, probably her pals, and even meteorological reports suggesting my automobiles were generating additional snowdrifts on the street. Furthermore, she proceeded, pulling out a large binder. I've documented every instance of vehicles arriving and departing Mr. Thompson's property during the preceding 3 months. My eyebrows shot up. She'd been monitoring my family's movements. Many acquaintances shuffled uneasily in their seats. That's when Sarah Jenkins, my next-door neighbor, stepped up. Karen, isn't this a tad excessive? They're just typical automobiles in a normal driveway. Karen's visage reneged as she snapped, you're out of order. You haven't been recognized by the leadership. I watched as Karen's husband Bob began handing out copies of a new proposed bylaw, one that would limit each family to 2 vehicles and necessitate garage parking. Only the ridiculousness of it, everything almost made me chuckle. Almost we'll now vote on the new vehicle limitations and fee hike, Karen asserted, not even bothering to facilitate discussion. All in favor. That was my signal. I rose up carefully, adjusting my tie. Point of order, Madam President. Karen's pupils narrowed as she peered at me over her reading glasses. You're not recognized, Mr. Thompson. Really? I stated, drawing out my own folder. According to HOA bylaw, Section 73, any property owner may elevate a matter of order involving voting procedures. The room grew silent. I could observe Karen's flawlessly manicured nails, holding the podium closer. Before we vote, I believe it's necessary to evaluate the HOA's present property ownership structure. I began strolling toward the